Now let's talk about one of my favorite conspiracies on this list, and a conspiracy that a lot of people these days are really still interested in: the death of Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a financier, broker, billionaire, and a sexual predator whose private jets and private island allowed him to rub shoulders with the world's elite. Some of his former associates included Donald Trump, the Clintons, Bill Gates, Alan Dershowitz, and Prince Andrew, to name a few. He was convicted of soliciting a child prostitute in 2008, but served little time thanks to a controversial plea deal, and soon he was back to his old ways. But the law caught up to him again in the summer of 2019, when he was arrested once again, this time for sex trafficking, and Epstein was held in the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York.
Here's the official story. On July 23rd, an unconscious Epstein was discovered in his jail cell with neck injuries. His cellmate was questioned, but the internal investigation cleared the man of any possible wrongdoing. A lawyer for some of Epstein's victims suspected he was being targeted and warned that Epstein may be killed in prison. He was then placed on suicide watch. On August 10, 2019, Epstein allegedly hung himself in his jail cell, and though guards attempted to revive him with CPR and transfer him to a nearby hospital, he was pronounced dead soon after. Following his death, the investigation into his sex trafficking operation focused on his close associate, Ghislaine Maxwell.
So here's the conspiracy theory. The theorists claim that the details surrounding Epstein's suicide are, as usual, extremely strange and far too coincidental. And considering the vast network of people, powerful people, that Epstein knew, there was plenty of motive for a murder there. Let's look at some of the strangest coincidences. While in the security housing unit at the MCC, Epstein was supposed to have a cellmate and a guard check in on him every half hour. The day before his murder, his cellmate was transferred, and on the night of his death, no guard checked in on him for about 3 hours.
The guards who were tasked with checking on him fell asleep at their desk and later falsified information related to the case.
Epstein's suicide was the first suicide at the MCC in 14 years.
The bunk bed in his cell may have been too short for him to hang himself, considering Epstein was almost 6 feet tall.
Epstein's cell had 2 security cameras aimed at it. They both malfunctioned that night.
His body was removed from the scene shortly after discovery, violating the prison's protocols, and his original state at the time of discovery was not photographed, another violation.
A bedsheet was used for the alleged hanging, but a sleep apnea machine he used in the cell had longer and stronger parts, like wires and tubing.
The hyoid bone in Epstein's body was broken. Some medical professionals and examiners have suggested that this is usually associated with strangulation, not hanging.
Blood was found on Epstein's neck, but not on the bedsheet, and the wound on his neck was much thinner than the material found wrapped around his neck.
Epstein seemed, quote, upbeat, according to his lawyers, who he met with just before his death.
And lastly, Jean-Luc Brunel, a French modeling agent and close associate of Epstein's, was found dead in his Santé prison cell in Paris, France in February of 2022. Brunel was being charged with rape and trafficking of minors. According to reports, he allegedly hanged himself in the same manner as Epstein. His death is currently being investigated.
Also, that not everybody, but a ton of people said, oh yeah, now it's going to be suspicious suicide before it happened. A lot of people called it and got it right.
Yes, a lot of people did.
Sad. Let's go over the means, motive, and opportunity. Means. When you're friends with some of the most powerful people on Earth, you've got to understand that every single one of them has the means to kill you to protect their own interests. Nearly everyone Epstein knew had enough money and power to assassinate him.
Motive. Being associated with a man like Epstein looks bad enough on its own, but if there was a chance he'd snitch on any of his friends and expose them as sexual predators, rapists, pedophiles, or even just accomplices or willing observers to his own depraved acts, that creates plenty of motive to silence him. There's a very good possibility, based on what we already know about Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew, that they may have engaged in sexual activity with underage girls. Proof of that, or even testimony from the man whose business was to procure those girls for rich and powerful people and for himself, could have been devastating. Don't believe it? Watch the interviews with Prince Andrew and Bill Gates specifically, and tell me that they don't look and act extremely nervous and awkward. If they really were innocent, had nothing to do with Epstein, and were basically untouchable due to their wealth and status, what reason would they have to be nervous? Unless. Now for opportunity. With 3 unsupervised hours, no security cameras, and no cellmate to cry out for help, it would have been simple enough to kill Epstein and stage a scene. especially with as much money and resources as Epstein's associates had. Same thing for Jean-Luc Brunel. The only odd thing is Maxwell. Why not kill her? She was his right-hand woman, but as far as we know, she hasn't snitched, so maybe they trusted her to keep quiet? I don't know. That's a big risk. That kind of is the one nagging thing in my mind about the conspiracy. I really want to believe that he was murdered. I think it makes logical sense. And the same thing, now that just recently, last month, Brunel showed up dead. That's very telling.
I think the average person would start to get very suspicious if she showed up dead too.
Yes.
It would just be like too much.
Okay, so maybe they're backing off because that's too much. Perhaps. Thanks for listening to the Sons of Antiquity highlight reel. To hear this clip in context and to enjoy our full-length episodes, check out the links in the description or search Sons of Antiquity on YouTube, BitChute, Spotify, or Apple and Google Podcasts.